The world will mark Nelson Mandela Day. New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs will reflect on Madiba's endless march towards freedom. I would like to recognize a man whose legacy lives on in the millions that he inspired. In the years before his death, Madiba was elevated into a pantheon beyond mere mortals. And yet tonight, as we gather to recommit ourselves to what Madiba's leadership showed could be made possible, we must also recognize that to treat him as more myth than man is to do him a grave disservice. He was a man as subject to self-doubt as any of us. He was a leader who won seismic victories, and yet the struggle to win the South Africa he dreamed of is still there to be won. What a gift it is that Madiba was flawed like each of us. And it is his humanity that allows us to look towards the next generation of leaders and say sincerely, you too can be Madiba. We are together this evening to launch the Mandela Foundation Global Leadership Forum. We are together to chart a course through the turbulent waters that lie before us. A global landscape roiled by strongmen and corruption, where rights are stolen away in the dead of night and apartheid in different forms endures. Often on occasions like these, the person fortunate enough to stand where I stand now will look out into the audience and ask them to imagine if Madiba was here today, what he would have said, what he would have done. Why not ask ourselves instead, when he was here, what did he say? And what did we say in return? We need not travel far to find the answer. It was on June 21st, 1990, only 4 months after he had been released from Robben Island, that Madiba arrived for a town hall with ABC News' Ted Koppel. For the first time, he could look back and answer whether he was everything he had been made out to be. Koppel had disguised an ambush as a town hall. Again and again, Madiba was condescended to and painted as a terrorist, a violent extremist, an obstacle to peace. And then an hour into the event, Koppel returned to a question about Madiba's support for the Palestinian cause. Did that solidarity, he asked, mean Madiba was willing to alienate the Jewish community? It was a question so contrived that Madiba had to ask Koppel what exactly he meant. It is also a question that frankly rings familiar. Whether opposing Israeli war crimes and violations of international law somehow makes you hateful towards a people. Madiba refused the premise. Instead, he flipped it into a different kind of question, about whether a politics of universalism can exist if it is riddled with exceptions. Whether any of us are free if some of us are not. Towards the end of his answer, he said,
but for anybody who changes his principles depending on whom he is dealing, that is not a man who can lead a nation.
Hypocrisy. Political convenience, these forces possess a gravitational pull. So often it is easier to make a concession, to relinquish a long-held belief, to abandon a principle, than to hold firm. That was true when the world asked Madiba to compromise on apartheid. It was true when many asked him to abandon the Palestinian struggle for freedom. And it remains true today. In his demand of solidarity from himself and from each of us, Madiba becomes more than a man, more than a messiah. He becomes a mirror. When we hear his refusal to abandon those with whom he shared common cause, do we recognize ourselves? Or do we recognize only the version of Mandela that asks nothing of us? Too many do. And as we remember Madiba the man, some will ask ourselves a harder question. Who are we treating today the way Madiba was treated before history declared him a messiah? Who else has seen their humanity made conditional, has been told their freedom can wait? Who else needs our solidarity? I think of Omar el-Akkad, who wrote a book titled, "One Day, Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This." That sentence captures one of history's cruelest, most familiar habits. Eventually, almost everyone claims they stood with Madiba, that they stood with Dr. King. Eventually, almost everyone will claim they oppose so much of the injustice that they justify today. But justice is not measured by where we stand after history has issued its verdict. It is measured by where we stand when the verdict is still being rendered. Why must Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya wait more than 18 months for freedom in Israeli detention? A detention that continues to this day, after the world watched him be kidnapped as he left his hospital watched as he was wasting away in prison? Why must we wait as Umar Khalid enters his 6th year of captivity in Delhi, a political prisoner, jailed under the same manufactured charges of terrorism that were once leveled against Madiba? Why must we wait to stand steadfast alongside immigrants being targeted and preyed upon? Whether it was Joan Sebastian Guerrero, shot in the head by ICE in Biddeford, Maine on Monday, or Amaramiro Emmanuel and Ekpeyong Andrew, 2 Nigerians killed last week in South African streets where xenophobia builds. Why must we wait to practice solidarity until it no longer costs us anything? The world we live in is designed to pull us apart. There is money to be made and power to be won in demonizing the poor and stoking the fires of racial animus. But were these not the same conditions that Madiba overcame? The truth is that solidarity is perhaps best nurtured by the conditions that seek to destroy it. Workers rise up when bosses restrict their rights. Citizens link arms when authoritarians impose brutal crackdowns. Every struggle for a better future began at a moment when that future felt forever out of reach. Solidarity, my friends, so often feels impossible, like something only a mythical figure could make real. And yet, as Madiba reminds us, through the life he lived, through the leadership he showed, and through the words he spoke, it always seems impossible until it's done. Let us do it together.